What a freaking episode of The Promised Neverland. The crack, the sound of Emma's leg cracking was horrifying. So let's get into what Isabella, the mother, just did, and why she should be considered one of the most terrifying characters of Winter of Anime 2019. See, let's look at the Ray stuff. When she's like, Ray, I no longer need you. You were a good dog, but I don't need you anymore. And she kind of removed him from her service. And in that moment, what that scene showed was that Isabella doesn't consider Ray as much of a threat as Sister Crone. And Crone has been dealt with, obviously. We saw that in this episode, which I'll get into. But she was basically saying to Ray, I eliminated Crone. She was a spy. She was trying to start stuff. She's gone. And she's like, Ray, you may be a spy. You may know things, but you're no threat to me. I don't think you're going to allow anything to happen because of how you are as an individual. And so because of that, she doesn't think Ray is that scary to her. So she disregarded him and just mind-crushed him in that moment. Then she charges Emma and Norman and dropped the act of a caretaker, a mother watching over orphaned children. When she's like, it's the first time in 10 years I've ever talked to you. This is the first time we had a real conversation. It's a shocking moment because in that moment, it shows that she dropped the act. She's not trying to lie or hide anymore behind false pretenses or anything. And Emma and Norman saw that. It was to get them shocked, nervous, but also what she wanted was to let them know they're no longer hiding. She knows exactly who she needs to watch out for. When she said 5 instead of 3, it proved that she knew about Dawn and Gilda. So they know, or she knows, all of them, of what they're doing or how they've been doing things behind the scenes. So that was a scary moment for them. Then, when Emma rushed in, and they thought that they could be fine because, she just wants to control them, but not ship them out, they thought they can pretty much get away with anything as long as they don't go too far of extremes. So when Emma rushed, Isabella, it seemed like everything might have been okay. Maybe Isabella would have shoved her to the ground and that would have been it, but that's not exactly what happened. Isabella snapped Emma's leg, and the significance of this is to prove that one of the strongest physical characters, a part of the group, is now injured and cannot utilize her main gifts. Because think about it, that's been the main go-to established fact about Emma since the very beginning. Out of the 3, Ray, Norman, and Emma, you have it to where Emma was the most physically active. She was able to play hide and seek like nothing. The only thing she lacked really was the same level of intelligence that Norman and Ray had, but she is still very smart. So seeing Isabella snap Emma's leg holds a lot of weight because Emma was someone that was going to be probably tasked with doing a lot of the physical activities of getting out of this farm. But now that her leg is broke, obviously that's not going to happen. And then on top of that, with her hurting Emma instead of Norman, it also keeps Norman in place, in check, because he is probably the most difficult to deal with. And obviously Isabella knows about this. Norman is a vicious, savage individual that's willing to do things. However, like I've said since the very beginning, his weakness is Emma. And obviously, Isabella knows this. And so, effectively wounding Emma to the point to where she cannot walk and even be capable of escaping makes it to where Norman will not escape. Because he's never going to escape without Emma. He's willing to throw everyone else away, but he wants Emma. He wants to protect her. He cares about her. He loves her. So, obviously, Isabella, knowing about this, because this is technically her children, she forced Norman to accept reality that he is getting shipped off. And it's not just that either. With her saying, Norman, you're the first to be shipped out, it gets rid of the main mastermind. Because, number one, Ray's entire objective is to be shipped out first for Emma and Norman can be able to leave while he's being shipped out. That's kind of what he was wanting. He would kind of like sacrifice himself. But now seeing this situation with Norman being shipped out first, that can no longer be an option. The one of the main head honcho, the brains beyond the situation to get everybody out, get Emma out and all that, he is gone. Because Ray is someone that gives up very quickly. It's been established since the beginning. Emma now out of commission with her leg. How are they really going to be able to escape the farm now is the question that is raised. So it's a great episode. It's a great scene with Isabella showing just how her thought process is and how far she will go to control these children where they will not leave the farm and they will stay there until they get shipped out. Because Emma's not going anywhere. Norman's obviously not going anywhere if Emma's not. And Ray, he gives up. So yeah, that's what's really going on here with this episode. So let's talk about Sister Crone. Sister Crone is a very emotional scene, and the way the anime depicted it, in a lot of ways, I think is somewhat sadder than the manga. And the manga is good in some aspects, better than the anime for Sister Crone, but it's still very good in the anime. Sister Crone's death was very brutal, and it was very drawn out in this episode, which I think was needed, because in the manga, it was very quick. Like, it was pretty much instant, and you didn't really see Sister Crone struggle that much. And seeing how she kind of fought back as long as she could, dragging herself across the ground until eventually she died, was a sad scene, because it showed how she did not want to die. And that seems like a logical thing to say. Like, obviously, she didn't want to die. But that's one of the big things that you can get from this now, about Isabella and Sister Crone. As individuals, the reason what they're doing, or why they're doing it, for instance, selling these children off to be meat for these demons, is because they don't want to die. And that's kind of what Sister Crone learned, and obviously what Isabella's learned. When you see the brief little flashback of Sister Crone, when she's this little girl with a smile on her face, holding her, this stuffed toy, it's a very sweet scene because you see that Sister Crone had a lot of life. She was a very different girl than what she was towards the end of her life. And when you see how she slowly trains, she gets to surgery, and all this time passes, you see how the light in her eyes turns into something fierce, something that just wants to fight for its survival, and that's what happened. Sister Crone lost her once self. She became something else, just thought about her own self, being selfish, and didn't want to die. And so seeing her fight back like that is a big message, showing that, she didn't want to die, she fought back, and that's what her entire life has been about. And that's kind of what Isabella has been doing, or anyone that's probably in this plantation. They've been fighting back to be where they're at. And seeing her kind of say, I want those kids to escape, I want those kids to survive, I want them to break this world, it wasn't Sister Crone being a good-natured person. That's not really what it wanted to show. She was still being very selfish. She was a very selfish individual in that moment. She was just basically saying, I hate this world, what it's done to me. I want this world to be broken for no more others are like me, broken like me. I don't want people like that. And so Crone accepted reality. She knew it was over, and she just wants the kids not to end up like she did. And she wants them to be able to escape and ruin everything for everyone else, which is why she left that pin behind we see in this episode. So Sister Crone, she became a very likable character. And speaking of her stuffed toy, that was never in the manga. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that or not in my episode reviews, but that was never in the manga. And for a while now, I've been wondering what was the purpose of adding that stuffed toy to Sister Crone. It just made her seem a little bit psychotic. And I'm like, why would you do that? Because even though Sister Crone is broken, she isn't crazy, like so to say. She isn't like crazy to where she's off her rockers and doesn't know what she's doing. She's very capable, very aware, very intelligent, menacing. And it's been since the beginning with that introduction of the stuffed toy, I'm like, why? And this episode kind of depicts that, of what the stuffed toy actually represents. And it's more of a visual impact for the anime onlys to really get. It's to show how Sister Crone's insides changed alongside, how battered she got. Because as a human being, you normally can't really see from the outside of how someone has changed, besides if you've been with them since the very beginning. Like, example, let's say you're a kind 100% individual that will give anything away to be able to save someone's life. Something horrible happens to you, and later on in your life, about 10 years later, you're willing to just let someone die because you don't want to give anything up. And obviously the person that met you 10 years into the future would have no idea how you were 10 years in the past, and they would just see the current you as you and not know how much you have changed. And that's kind of what that stuffed toy was trying to depict, is that Sister Chrome, she became very broken. The toy showed the outside damage, or the internal damage she got, and that she was no longer that kind little girl. Her childhood was destroyed. That's what the doll represented, and seeing the broken nature of it and all that while watching Crone die was its final life. Basically, it's gone. It's over. Crone is done. Her life is ended. So, I like the stuffed toy edition now. I actually have to say I do like the edition of it. It isn't the best. I think they could have done better with Crone in terms of, like, certain adaptations of how she, talked or had her internal monologue, but I do say that the stuffed toy at this point is a very good addition, and it definitely expanded upon Sister Crone's farewell. But okay, big thing to talk about now. Let's talk about Phil. Phil is a very odd character. And I think many watching this episode is going to pick up on that. Every important scene, Phil kind of popped up on. When it came to trying to get Sister Crone to wake up, even though we know the truth and that she was long gone, to seeing when Isabella popped back up with Emma with her broken leg, Phil was always popping up in these key scenes. And it just becomes very, very shady, and it makes you worry, why is that? Why is Phil always in every important scene? What is he doing? What role does he have? Is he a spy? Is he a spy for another party? Is he working for Isabella? It just makes you wonder what's really going on with Phil because of how much he constantly gets shown in every single freaking episode. But holding the phone there, I also want to talk about what was also revealed. The flower that was inside of Connie, but now in Sister Crone, we can get that as some form of, I think it's called bloodletting, or whatever it's called. I forget the actual term of what it's called, but it's basically where you drain the blood from a body. And it seems that's what that flower does. They impale the body with the flower, and the flower drains out the blood. It draws the blood out, and you see the flower turn like with red petals, basically symbolizing that blood is coming out of it. So the flower most likely is used to bring out all the blood for the meat can be rather fresh. That's kind of what's happening there. So it's a very brutal scene. If you think about it in that context, it's dark. But it makes a lot of sense for what this series is about, or what it's trying to represent. But I think that's about it. It's a good episode of The Promised Neverland. I like what we got, and I love the depiction of certain scenes like Emma to Sister Crone. So I can't wait for next week's episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, how you felt about this twisted episode, how I feel about Emma literally breaking a leg with her effort. Love you guys. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please hit the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.